everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the TopCyberPro podcast. I have another wonderful guest. This gentleman has got a lot of things going on in his career. He's done a lot, he's seen a lot, and he's going to be sharing a lot with us in this podcast episode. So, without further ado, I'm going to let him continue to introduce himself. But Matthieu, Bill.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me there. I'm Matthieu Billaux. I'm currently a solutions architect for Pantera, a software development company. I've been in the industry for the last 20 years now, so starting to get some experience in there. I've been doing a lot of things from system administrator to my late job as solutions architect. I've been working in the blue team side. I've been working in the governance. I've been doing some red team engagement. I've been doing quite a lot of things. And yeah, happy to be here tonight.
Wonderful. So that's a lot that you said there because you mentioned blue teaming, red teaming. There's a new concept called purple teaming. So could you maybe kind of explain for anyone watching, like what does all these colors mean and what is these teams doing?
Yeah, sure. So the terms about the colors usually came from the blue and the red colors from the military, where you had to train teams to be ready for anything that might happen. So initially, the concept of red teaming is like bringing the adversarial mindset. So anyone that will be going against you or against the rule and want to break, for instance, into your system, if you're like a company. So basically, this is what people doing red teaming nowadays are doing. Like, what would an attacker do to get into your system, whether it's social engineering, direct attacks like spear phishing, or I don't know, maybe exploiting public assets. And in front of them, you have the defenders, so the blue teamers. So basically, the jobs that should be the most engaging for people because basically you are the good guys, you are protecting the company, and you're trying to monitor everything that happens, like what is happening there. And so basically, this is the blue team, like you're staring at logs, you're getting incidents, you're trying to solve all the gaps that you can see and make sure that no one is crawling in your environment. And for a few years now, I would say we have the concept of purple teaming. So this is making red team and blue team work together, like having strong bonds and not getting to the old mindset of, hey, red wins, fatality. Yeah, there we went, you get screwed, and that's it. So basically, you work with the blue team and you say, hey, we've been able to do this, and we did it this way, and you should have been able to detect that if you had this in place, and you help them basically with like detection engineering workshops or things like that. And for instance, I don't know if we speak technically about specific things, like someone broke into a system and maybe they've been able to exploit a flow in the system and say, hey, we've been able to move from here to there. If you had, I don't know, maybe an IDS, you should have seen that someone was running a port scan from there to there. And basically you're iterating over different workshops to make sure that there is no gap left and until the next engagement.
So you have the blue team, the good guys, the red team, the bad guys, and then the purple team, kind of the mediator between both the groups and sharing and collaborating on the scenarios. There's a wonderful site. I've had a guest previously on that was representing Attack IQ Academy, which has wonderful training on purple teaming and immolation plans and the MITRE attack framework and so forth. So I'll have the link in the description below. Definitely check those guys out. What I love about what they've done with their training, excuse me, I'm getting a little under the weather, folks, but we're going to power through this. What I like about their training is that when you complete their training, you get CPEs, continuing professional education credits. First and foremost, that's great because you could renew your other certifications with those. Two, they give you a Credly digital badge so that where you have a verifiable badge. So if you post it on your LinkedIn profile or so forth, you get a Credly digital badge. And third, it helps you immediately, it gives you that share link where you can immediately add it to your LinkedIn profile. So I like that it's kind of a triple win. And it's just good training. At the end of the day, it's good training. So shout out to Attack IQ Academy. Link is in the description below. Matthieu, there's another concept when people talk about the red teaming, purple teaming. There's a thing that, like recently I had a conversation with the founder of VC Council, Jay Bavisi. They just launched the Hackerverse. And so that's a monthly CTF that runs. There's like cash prizes and all kinds of things revolving around it. I think they've only been running for about 2 months as of this time of this recording. But could you maybe explain to anyone watching what is CTF mean and what's the why? Why have it? What is the why behind a CTF?
So the CTF for me, I would compare this maybe to esports. Like when you're playing video games, it's cool to play video games on your own. Like I mean, you play with your friends, and that's okay. You're the best Mario Bros. 3 player I know, and that's it. That's pretty cool. But at some point, maybe you want to be challenged and compete against other players. Like if you do, I don't know, martial arts. Like if you're into judo or karate, you don't stay in your own dojo alone. Like you
Yeah,
will compete against other players.
tournament. Yes.
Yeah, and CTF it's basically around that. Like you get a lot of different scenario that you can get, a lot of different challenges, different type of challenges, and you can get any type of CTF. So you have mostly the Jeopardy that is like maybe the most popular. Like you have a lot of different kind of challenges. Like they say, hey, here we have web challenges for you. Here we have programming challenges. Here we have forensics one. Here we have, I don't know, maybe log analysis, PCAP analysis. You've got a lot of team that you can have, and you can just like take one challenge and get into it. And you also have like attack defense challenges where every team has their own information system and they have to break into the other team system and get flags, and that's it. And basically, CTF is like a good way to learn new things, because you know that if you are into cyber or want to get into cyber, you have to learn a lot and you have to do what it takes to stay sharp. Like the landscape is evolving super fast, so there is every day new vulnerabilities, new techniques that you might want to get into or learn. And the proper way to do it is like maybe depending on who you are, but for most people, CTF is like a great way to do it, because it's like playing video games. Like you need to learn that skill, but
Simulation.
it's easier to gamify. Like it's easier to learn by doing, and it's easier if it's fun. Like I've been playing the latest Hack the Box CTF they run for the companies. It was like 2 weeks ago, I guess, on a weekend, and there were challenges on any topic. Like you had reverse challenges, you had POM challenges, you had web ones, and things like that. And at some point, I ran into a cloud challenge. I've been doing cloud hacking quite a lot across the last year, and this time I had to solve something I never saw before. Like you had an AWS instance to attack, so I got quite easily the IAM metadata. So basically, I was able to assume the role of the EC2 instance, so that was pretty cool. But I had to deal with the AWS signature system that they implemented recently. And I was like, oh, no, I need to learn. And it's been really fun to learn how to do this, because I had to, if I wanted to grab the points for my teams, because basically they were saying, hey, you're playing with us, you need to get some
Yes.
points for us. And yeah, you have this kind of nice pressure, and it's like a nice way. I mean, I've been playing video games quite a lot across the maybe 30 last years, and I love playing video games. And I find in the CTF what I find in the video games, like super quick dopamine rush, the pressure to get better, and sometimes you will be hit by a wall, and that's you know that you have to learn more, and you definitely want to learn more because you have to solve this small challenge. So yeah.
So you just mentioned video games, and I love video games myself. I've been playing video games since a system called the Intellivision that gave way to the Atari, and then so on and so forth to Nintendo, and so on since then. What are your favorite games of all time? If I could ask, like your top two favorite games all time.
My top two, I would say The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, definitely brings a lot of memory. And the second one, I mean, would not be that original, but would be Final Fantasy VII. Probably the best period in video games for me, because I was a teenager and I was playing quite a lot. And these two games were like echoing a lot for me. I've been playing quite a lot World of Warcraft also too, to be honest. But
Yes.
it's kind of a special relationship for any
What's
World
your
of
main
Warcraft player.
character on World of Warcraft?
Oh, I will not make a lot of friends with that one, but I'm playing a dwarf paladin, so
A
alliance
dwarf
player.
paladin. Okay. Are you a
Yeah,
tank prot?
I'm playing protection prot.
Okay, protection, yeah, prot. So I also had a prot main tank that was a blood elf paladin because of the at the time it was a consecration. That
Yeah,
was the big AOE effect. But yeah, it was kind of cool. Yeah, World of Warcraft, and I had to give it up cold turkey because it was too immersive. I had to stay up to like 4 or 5 in the morning to do the big missions and runs, and just couldn't keep up with that kind of sleep schedule. So you mentioned Hack the Box. So you are an ambassador for Hack the Box, and a lot of folks, if you haven't heard about Hack the Box, the link is in the description below. Pause this video, pull that up, join, create an account. It's free. I believe it's free, right? I think you
yeah.
could pay for faster performance, I believe, but I believe it's free for everybody.
Yeah, you can definitely start for free. Like you don't have to pay anything to get on
Mhm.
the Hack the Box. You can play basically with a free tier account and you will get access to all the active challenges they have, all the active machines they have. So you always have 20 active machines in there with different difficulty from easy to insane. And basically you can play on shared environments. So there will be multiple players on the same machine that will be attacking, and you will need to have your own VM with your attacking tool, and Hack the Box will provide you with a VPN file and you can connect in there
Mhm.
and you can start from there. After that, you can pay if you want. They have optional tier, like you can get the VIP or the VIP Plus
Mhm.
to access labs with less people. And when you have the VIP Plus, you're always alone on the machine you're targeting. So
And
makes
so,
things
and they don't
definitely
charge
easier.
a lot of money, from what I recall. It's very affordable. So when you get to a point, try it for free. But when you get tired of having to compete for the same, resources on a platform, again, pay a little bit of money and to take it to the next level. But you can start for the price of free, which everybody should like that. Start with the price of free, and then when you reach the point where all the other people are getting aggravated and the resources are all sapped out, take it to the next level, and you won't regret it because you get better by doing. The simulation is worth everything. Um, and we'll have the description down below. We're talking about other facets of your career, like red teaming, threat hunting, and so forth. What have you seen from your career perspective in, let's say, the past 5 years? What have you seen the rise of, and what have you seen maybe like it was bad when you first saw a few years ago, but now it's not as bad, but then this has really become a concern. So if someone watching this wanted to start somewhere, we're reading about what the trending threat landscape looks like. What are the top attacks now, and where are websites they can read to learn more about this? What would you tell someone?
Well, I would say today most of the things we have connected are like applications. So definitely, if you want to get into cyber and get the hot topics, you need to get around the AppSec things. I've seen a lot of Kubernetes getting deployed, a lot of cloud platforms getting deployed also. So this is like a good way for companies to have products starting pretty fast. Like you can ship super fast to a customer now. You can have someone saying, "Hey, I want this app," and like 2 weeks after that, all the infrastructure is built, everything is fast, and everything is working. But the bad point about this is that companies usually have less control about what is being deployed. If they have not been like super proactive on how to put safeguards in place regarding their AWS or Azure accounts, you can quickly have some nasty gaps that you have not been identifying, and a lot of people will be seeing that. It can also happen to like super large company. I have a friend of mine who reached out to a cybersecurity learning company like 2 years ago. They were providing VMs, the same kind of the thing you can get from Hack the Box, but it was not Hack the Box. And it was like on the VM and trying to play a few things, and he found like a super bad flows in their AWS environment. Like he was able to assume the whole of the VM, and it was not properly configured. And he was able to crawl and get to the backbone and say, "Hey, I've been able to take over the old AWS tenant that you have. This is super bad." And basically, the guy in front, his first reaction was like, "You're a bad hacker. You're someone bad. We will sue you." And he was like, "I'm not here to do any harm. I'm just saying that if I've been able to do it, maybe a lot of people have been doing this before me." So yeah, I would say everything related to AppSec and cloud is definitely a hot thing. But the thing that frightens me the most for the next year would be AI, I guess, because I'm as enthusiastic as fearing the AI. Like you can get super cool things from the AI, but you can see also that sometimes it's giving you like bad results. And too many companies are just relying on the AI now, saying, hey, we will stop doing this on our own and delegate this to the AI. And AI is getting everywhere, like even if you don't need it. And we've seen a lot of funny things around that on the internet. Like I think there was a platform where you were able to negotiate the prices, like they were selling things like you wanted a TV, and it was like you're getting into the shop and talking to the vendor and saying, hey, I don't want to buy this TV for 1,000. I want it for 800. And you start to negotiate. And in the end, you have a small discount. And people were able to convince the AI to give the TV for free and even
Hmm.
give them money.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, so we can do that. Yeah, we can definitely do that with the AI.
You mentioned cloud security with these applications and so forth. And so last season, folks, and I'll put the description for that podcast. I had Edward, I'm going to butcher his last name, but Matei Josephs. These two gentlemen are from Romania, and they were at DEF CON last year talking about a major vulnerability in AWS where they were just doing research. And the way they explained it, it was like they took a cup of water from the ocean of all this of the the data, and they were just analyzing just that one coffee cup. But in that coffee cup, they found like, I forget, 200 plus hundreds and hundreds of just unsecured settings where on the public side, people could just see like, like bank account information. They were able to see a lot of financials, a lot of user information. So they tried to notify AWS, and AWS didn't really respond to them. So then they tried to go and like contact these companies one by one because they were doing their part as security researchers to do the ethical thing. And only I think one company finally engaged them and actually took their recommendations and fixed their stuff. Eventually, AWS did come around and get with them, and they turned over all their information to AWS. And but they went on to speak at DEF CON, which is a pretty cool experience if anyone that does get to go to DEF CON in Vegas. And but yeah, I will link that podcast in the description below. But going back to what you do every day, there's a lot of acronyms, right? When people talk about hacking, we mentioned CTF, capture the flag, and there's a bunch of other acronyms that people hear from time to time. And could you maybe give us some of the top acronyms? I'll start you off on one, APTs, and then maybe give us a couple more acronyms that are very common in this industry of pen testing, red teaming, and threat hunting.
Yeah, so APT would be Advanced Persistent Threat. So basically, this is what you're using when you're talking specifically about big actors of the cyber field when it comes to bad actors. Usually, they are like nation state actors or sponsored by nation state or highly organized crime. So yeah, they're like the mafia that you can have for the cyber. They started being named after numbers when it started, like APT1 and things like that. But recently they've been switching to fancy names, like Microsoft or CrowdStrike gave them fancy name depending on where they come from. Like I don't know the latest, but you have things with Blizzard or things with Panda. If they're from China, obviously they are Panda, and if they are coming from the cold of Russia, it's Blizzard, and
Or
yeah,
bear.
basically they gave fancy names like that. And this is basically like highly organized crime organization, and they are like investing a lot in research, and they are not supposed to target anyone. Like they won't be targeting one random people somewhere in, I don't know, maybe the center of Dakota. They will be mostly targeting big companies or
Mhm.
nation just for the sake of getting the information they need. So yeah, APT is about that. What other acronym can we have? Like um, you obviously have VM, vulnerability management, usually quite a thing for companies. Like if you're into cyber, you know that there are a lot of vulnerabilities that you can have, and you have to manage all the vulnerabilities. So basically, everyone thinks like it's super simple. Like you take the most critical one and you correct them, and you start to decrease up to the point where you reach zero. But the thing is that in the real life, you have other vulnerabilities coming on top and other. So it's like a cycle to have proper vulnerability management. Uh, One of the acronym I like, I don't know if I can say I like it, but it's RAAS. So that would be ransomware as a service. So we've been seeing ransomware evolve quite a lot over the last decade. Like it went from people in their garage sending some codes to APT doing their
Mhm.
own ransomware now. And you have big groups that are now selling their ransomware as kits. Like you can buy like it's like you're starting, I don't know, a McDonald's franchise. Like I want to be a Conti affiliate, so I'm buying the starter pack. I will be getting my Adidas sweater, and I will be getting my sneakers and the source code. And basically, you pay an amount for that. You get the code, you get your version of the code and how to generate it, and you give them money for that, and you give them a percentage of the money you get. So it's been like super professional now to get into malware. Like I know a lot of malware developer here in France, and they've been like doing this on their spare time to start with. And now when they see that, they say, "Hey, we've been like super kiddies when we were teenagers, and we built a lot of things that are now being sold by them. I don't know." So yeah, it's quite interesting, I would say. It might not be my favorite of all time, but it's definitely
It is
something
definitely
super
a
interesting to
rising
yeah.
threat and one of the newer acronyms, right, in the past few years. Um, one of the things that when I talk to people about patch management, vulnerability management, the IVAs, and to constantly just every week the browsers, Chrome and Firefox and Explorer, they all get their updates, and then the Adobe, you get all these typical softwares that need to be patched almost every week, right? And what a lot of folks don't understand with software, when you make changes, sometimes when you make a patch or particularly when you add features. So when you update a software to the latest version, it usually fixes a lot of bugs and issues that had in the previous edition of that code. But a lot of times what people don't understand is when you add new code, because the new version is newer files and more data sometimes, that sometimes by changing something, you can open up a vulnerability that they haven't discovered yet. And that's why when they release the software, they really depend on the feedback from their customers, reporting the tickets, calling tech support so they can identify these bugs because different companies have different levels of security testing or code testing. Some companies do automated checks. There's a different couple of suites of tools for automated code checking. There's still companies that do still modular manual checking. So there's both human-based manual checking and also automated checking. And at the end of the day, there's not one tool that's better than the other because at the end of the day, they could still be things like zero-day exploits. They could still be embedded things that could be compromised for like a living off the land attack. So there's still always this never-ending struggle to always maintain the best you can to reduce the best you can of the vulnerabilities, but there's always going to be vulnerabilities. So when we have this nature of a constant, like there's always a fire somewhere, big or small, every week. This can get really stressful for people. It can become like just stressful. It can make you tired. It can cause burnout, right? So, what would be something that obviously you do this work and you have done this work in your career. What are some things that you do to avoid burnout?
Well, what I usually tell people to avoid burnout is like make sure you're surrounded by helpful people and like I mean outside of the job like friends, your partner, things like that. You need to have people with whom you can talk about something else that's cybersecurity, and you definitely need to have at least one hobby. And it's something at some point in my career when I was a manager and I was hiring people, I had some time to reject some candidates and they didn't understand why I did that. And after that, they reached out to me like weeks after or months after saying, "Hey, finally, thank you for rejecting me for this specific reason, because now I understand why it's important." And the reason was on their resume, there was no mention about any hobbies. And when I asked the question, like, "Do you have any hobby outside of cybersecurity?" They were usually answering, "Yeah, I'm playing Hack the Box." And I was like, "This is cybersecurity." "Yeah, I'm playing CTF." "That's cybersecurity."
Cybersecurity.
"I'm playing Try Hack Me." "This is CTF." And I was like, "No, so outside of the cybersecurity, you have nothing. And if you have nothing outside of the cybersecurity, you will burn because it's your hobby, it's your passion, it's your work. You will live, breathe, eat, and sleep cybersecurity. And at some point, your brain will
It'll
just melt."
break down.
So yeah, you need to have something outside of cybersecurity. So I know for me, for instance, it's running. Like I go on running session 3 times a week. Like I need to run. If I don't run for like 1 week, I would say. I will start to melt. Like I really need to do that to be able to empty my brain and make sure that
Yeah.
any
And you're
tension
based
gets
in
out.
France, right? Because I was
Yeah,
just recently in Paris, and I think just in a 4 hour walk through Paris, I must have saw at least 100 people running. So I know the French love their health and the well-being, and there were so many runners. And and I can see that they get aggravated because there's so many tourists in Paris. So the runners are trying to like stop and move around groups of people. But anyhow, but yeah, I applaud you for taking care of your health because that's the one thing money can't buy. So take us through a day in the life of a solutions architect because you hear this like, okay, architects build things, right? And
yeah.
you're a solutions architect, so you're building, obviously it's by its simple nature of the term, you're building solutions. So could you tell us a little bit about what that job is and what a day in the life looks like?
Yeah, so I can talk about what I do as a solutions architect for Pantera because I mean, I'm pretty sure other solutions architects for other solutions are maybe not doing the same exact thing. But what I do is that I have a frequent meeting with my customers and they have bought our product. So they will need help to implement this. So what I'm doing with them is like taking care of how they implement the solution and use it. Uh, so, okay, give me your map of your network. So this is how your network is spread across all your subsidiaries, all your different sites. So, okay, we'll put the main node in there. So the node that we will be using for running our tests. And from there, you will be able to reach this part, this part, this part. Now you want to test, I don't know, maybe what would happen. I don't know if the company maybe has offices in New York and one in Paris and maybe one in Shanghai. What happens if tomorrow someone breaks into your Paris office and try to access what you have in New York? So we will maybe deploy another node that would be connected to the Paris network and make sure it has proper access on the network, make sure everything is linked. And I will help them on the software to define the scenario. So we'll go over the UI together and try to implement this and say, hey, okay, now I want to test what happens if someone is connected on this specific VLAN on this specific environment and want to reach that part. And after that, as you have a lot of things to configure in Pantera when it comes to what you want to attack and how, I will make them configure it to be able to get exactly what they want to try. And when the test is run, I will go over the results with them to be sure that they understand properly what has been raised because Pantera is a solution that can, among other things, do automated penetration testing. So it's the same thing you would get like if you were buying manual pen test. At some point, you will have like a review with the team that was in charge of the pen test and say, hey, this is the report, this is the restitution session, and this is what we found. This is why this is bad and what you want to do to remediate. So basically, I'm doing architecture for them network wise about put this in there, put this in there. I'm building scenarios with them like what is the risk that you want to see implemented, and we will implement it this way. And doing a part of what I've been doing as a pen tester previously and saying, hey, this is what we found, and this is what you want to remediate first, and this is what you need to do to remediate that.
Okay. So when you're talking about like when you're doing the analysis and like looking at their vulnerabilities and deciding how to adjust things and the recommendations for remediation, how much does tools like the MITRE ATT&CK framework and other tools of that nature assist in that kind of the filtering or rather a perspective into how to raise I guess the priority levels? Because just because like an entity like NIST or DISA will say something is high critical, but in the context of this business, it might not be as bad to their data.
Yeah.
So could you maybe explain how things like MITRE ATT&CK and other navigators or tools and frameworks will help kind of sift through the context, if you will?
So Maitri attack would be used to map all the techniques that were seen and deployed, and you usually use that to assess what they have in terms of detection. Like if we or any actor has been like doing port scans, you have a specific TTP in Maitri attack that says this is port scan, and usually you have like detection rules in front of that. And if you know that we've been able to scan the whole network and they have a SOC and the SOC has seen nothing and they got no alerts at all, you would say that definitely this TTP, this specific one, needs to be polished. Like maybe it can be a workshop with the SOC, or maybe it can be like a specific conversation with them just to be sure that they have, or just ask them what they have as detection rules for that. So usually Maitri attack is mostly used for that. Like you can map everything that you've been doing to known attacks exploited in the wild. The limits of Maitri attack usually is that, as I said, it's linked to things that have been observed in the wild
Observed.
and known. Yeah, so you still have techniques that are not documented in Maitri attack because it's been used like as 0 days, or some researchers have their own techniques that they are not sharing. So this can help you like identify the gaps in terms of detection and of reaction that you have. Usually when you want to prioritize what you will be remediating first when it comes to vulnerability, you can have different approaches. But what we do at Pantera is that you can define critical assets in the product. Like you say, hey, this is what it's the most critical for me, as you would do in any risk analysis. So if you're doing risk analysis with ISO 275, you can say, hey, these are the most valuable things in my company. And if this gets like owned, my company is totally done. Now, so for instance, I don't know if you're like creating a credit card. If like the secret to be creating a card is leaked, it's totally bad for you. If you're like, I don't know, selling maybe operating system, if your source code that is closed is leaked, it's bad for you. So what we say to our customers is that they define in the app and they say, these are the IPs of the servers that are the most critical to us, or these are the specific services that are the most critical to us. It can be, for instance, I don't know, an FTP server, or a MySQL database, or a Postgre database, something like that. It can be specific users on the system. Like, for instance, I don't know, you have a backup solution and you know that if you have access to the backups, you have access to the whole system. So if your backups are getting compromised, it's bad for you. And after the customer has set all these critical assets in the app, if we are able to do anything malicious related to any of these assets, we will tag this as highly prioritized. So in the chart that you will be getting after the report with all the vulnerabilities that we found, it will be put higher in the list, and you will know that you have to do. And this is usually what you do also when you do manual pen testing. Like if you took the time to talk with your customer about their business and what is important to them, and you're not just launching Nmap and saying, hey, I'm going to scan everything and we'll see after that. But if you discussed a bit with your customer, like what is important for you, or if you do some research, then you will see it. So for instance, I don't know if you're like doing a penetration testing for Coca-Cola, maybe, I don't know. Maybe the recipe for Coca-Cola would be something super secret and you don't want to leak. So in this specific case, if you're like doing a penetration testing for them, you will for sure tell that if you were able to get access to the recipe, it's like super critical. Even if it's like a small vulnerability that would be with CVSS score of 3.0 or something like that, it becomes critical because it's business critical. And that's the most important thing. I think for me, when it comes to cyber, is to understand that vulnerabilities have severity, but they have technical severity and they have business severity.
Thank you. And that was a great, great explanation, folks, of him breaking it down step by step by step. So thank you for that explanation. When he's mentioning Coke, Coke is referred to as a trade secret, right? They can't patent it because if you patent it, there's records. And so as a trade secret, they don't want any of that information in the public domain. So therefore, they have to protect it at all costs. But what he was just explaining about the approach for his business and how he does his job is very much aligned to how a lot of folks have heard of this new hot term called ZTA, or Zero Trust Architecture. And there's a lot of solutions out there that'll claim that they're a ZTA solution. But the principles of zero trust architecture, the number one principle is you have to know what's your critical assets. You got to know what you have before you can know how to defend it. And I love that it all starts with what's the most important thing to you, and then start creating those protection boundaries or bubbles, if you will, around those things and work from there outward. So I really like that. In fact, they call it expense and depth. Depth is they don't like the term defense in depth, the true ZTA folks. But anyhow, but what he was just speaking about, identifying what is the most critical thing. Where is your pain point, or the one thing that if it got compromised, you're out of business. And that's a great approach. Start with the most critical. We think of the human body, it's very much the same thing. We all wear clothes to keep us warm because our body temperature, if it drops, we start to shut down. If we don't get proper sleep, proper nutrition, or doing running like Matthieu does, take care of your heart. Any of these components, they're all different. Your brain, your lungs, your heart, your liver. If you drink too much, you have liver problems. If you eat too much, you'll have blood problems, sugar, diabetes. All these bad things can affect. And if any system goes out of order, it starts to mess with the entire system. So, with that being said, Matthieu, what have you seen in your career so far where you can have an enterprise or a company that has systems on top of systems, where some systems are subsystems of others? One process needs another to happen before it can happen. What have you seen where a subcomponent, where so a business maybe never thought anything of it because it's just a small thing in their business, but it had a big impact? Do you have any examples of that you can share with us?
A small thing that had huge
Big impact.
impact.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe it would not be like directly from a business into a business, but I think speaking of vulnerability, this is what we saw with Log4j, because basically a lot of companies have been running like their applications and building their maybe their system, their business model, their how they get money with building applications with this specific library that they're using.
Hmm.
And someone at some point found a vulnerability in that, gave a talk at DEF CON about that, and everyone say, "Hey, cool, cool." No one gave a shit about that. Sorry to say that, but yeah, no one took care of that. And like maybe 8 or 10 years later after that, someone managed to build a weaponized POC for that. And we started to see people getting apps pwned, and no one was taking care after that. And everyone started to open their eyes when a YouTuber started to pawn like Minecraft servers with these vulnerabilities. And after that, people were like, oh, this is bad. This is super bad. And a lot of companies have been impacted by that. And at this period of time when Log4j happened, I was working in a blue team, and we had a lot of customers that were relying on us as a security operations center. And we were reaching out to them saying, hey, we know you have web apps. We know we are using this technology. Can you give us the exact version of the library you're using? Because
Hmm.
we need to know. And they were like, we don't know. And we were like, don't you have like software bills of material with all the library? No, we don't. Okay, does someone know the version? No. Can someone access the source code and verify inside it? You don't know. And I spent maybe probably the worst weekend of my life, because it was like on a Friday evening, and I went to see my boss and saying, hey, boss, no one is on call this weekend. This is like probably the worst vulnerability we've been seeing for the last 2 years. What are we doing now? And he was saying, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm going back home and I will have a drink or two. And after that, it will be the weekend. And that was like, no, you can't be serious. And I spent my weekend like connecting quite often on the system saying, hey, did someone get caught? And I was like trying to build these detection rules to see what happened. And we hopefully had no customers getting pwned with this vulnerability, but I was like shocked about everything. Like all these companies were relying on this specific library. They were not able to say which version of the library. They were not able to tell any version of what they had. We were providing a service to them as part of our engagement, and we are not able to be sure that we will be fulfilling our duty like we don't know.
Yeah.
And Everyone was like, "Yeah, this is fine." With the dog with the flames behind, this is fine. And I was like, "Oh, come on."
But I think what it did was it reminded the entire world, especially in the software development and release community, is to check first and foremost, hashing is super important for verifying that the source matches the legitimate source, right? Having hashes for software, the MD5, super important when you're dealing with downloading patches and software. You have to make sure you can trust the source. And then the second is just version control, right? Like you said, most people don't know what version they were on. And so version control and hashing, I think the whole world got a quick down and dirty lesson into making sure they're on top of those two things. So Matthew, I know we could talk for hours and hours on vulnerabilities, threat hunting, but I want to get to some of my agenda questions I ask all my guests. So if you'll humor me, I do have these speed round of questions. There's just a handful of questions that there's no right or wrong answer, just whatever answer comes to your mind first. And if you're ready, we'll go. This is purely for fun.
Sure.
Okay. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say yes.
Cake or pie?
Pie,
What
definitely.
kind of pie?
Apple pie,
Hot or cold apple pie?
hot
Okay.
with
Now this
vanilla
question,
ice cream.
and the ice cream, I like it. This question is going to split the room. Okay. It's for all IT cyber people, they're one or the other. So are you a Star Wars fan or a Star Trek fan?
Yes.
There it is, right there. There's his answer right there, folks. Who's your favorite Star Wars character?
Uh, I would say Yoda.
Yoda?
But yeah, now
Yoda's
that I have
awesome.
children, I get how he could die from getting questions from Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, too many questions. Um, what has been your most favorite book you've read of all time, and what was the last book you've read?
So my favorite book of all time, it used to be The Treasure Island, but it was for a
Okay.
lot of years until I read Ready Player One. Like Ready Player One arrived in a period of my life that was a bit complicated. I was in mission for the Navy, and it was quite an intense period. And it was like escaping the reality to get back to
Good
what I
reality.
loved, so video games. So yeah, and the last book I read was the book by David Goggins, so Can't Hurt Me.
Oh, David Goggins.
Yeah,
He's carrying the boats, right? I love his mindset, his tenacity. If you would please provide me those links to those books, I'll put them in the description below for people to check out. Um, this is my favorite question to ask all my guests, Matthew, and it's a question that if we go back in time to a younger version of you on the day one that you decided that you wanted to do cyber IT, this is the stuff that intrigued you, and this is what you wanted to make the rest of your life's work about. What is that story, and do you mind sharing it with us?
so I was not that young because it was in 2012. So I was 26 already. And I was already in the Navy for years, and I was a system administrator and database administrator. And at some point, my boss sent me to a cyber defense training, and it was supposed to be about like network hardening and how to properly defend your network from bad guys because I had been doing that for years as a system administrator. So for me, it was
Mhm.
just like setting up servers and make sure they won't be compromised. And I went there, and this specific day, the trainer was like super excited and was saying that, hey, you know what? I've been running this exact same training for more than 5 years now. I can't stand it. So now we are gonna break things. So you won't be getting the defense training, but you will be getting the offensive one. So I started penetration testing by incident in 2012, and I went back home saying, "Hey, this is totally what I want to
To
do now."
do.
And the first thing we did, like on day one, was like cloning a bank website and do some attacks against DNS to poison the cache. And we were like targeting our mate's computer, and they had to say, "Is this the legitimate website or a cloned website?" And we had to do small modification, and it was like feeling so exciting to see how easy it was. And starting from there, I was like, yeah, now I want
He
to get
was
into
all
cyber.
in at that moment. Well, Thank goodness that that instructor changed it up that day. Otherwise, no telling we wouldn't have had you here in industry doing the great work you're doing. Speaking of folks like that instructor, has there been people, mentors, leaders, managers, bosses, coworkers, colleagues that along your career path have had a tremendous positive impact on you, or even people that are like industry leaders that you admire? And this question is really just an opportunity for you to what I call shine a light on the names of those that have been impactful for you in your career.
So I think one of the people that inspired me the most was when I got into cyber in the beginning. It was one of my colleagues at Gimalto at that time. Was called Manuel Leos Rivas. So he was like working in the cubicle right next to me, and I did not know him to start. And I was like, we had this intranet thingy where we could navigate and see things, and we had internal trainings. And I was like taking all the internal trainings about the products we had, and we had internal WAFs, so web application firewalls that we developed and sell for customer. And all the trainings were done by that guy. And I was like, he seems to be super cool. And I didn't know it was the guy in the cubicle right next to me. And my boss told me, hey, the guy you're talking about is just like in the cubicle next. And I started to talk with him, and I discovered that he was like a CTF champion. He was a triathlete. And I was like, oh, so you can have children, you can be a triathlete, you can be a CTF champion, and you can be so nice. And I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely the kind of guy I want to be. Yeah, so it was like my first ever mentor, and I've been playing CTFs with him for a lot of years, like all the time. I spent time doing networks for Sense and things like that. We did some of them together, and we got some pretty nice leaderboard with that. And yeah, he's like a super guy. I had other people inspiring me, of course, even if they are not like maybe huge celebrity in cyber, but in France we have some really cool researcher. Like I don't know if you know the guy, but Shutdown, Charlie Bromberg, is the guy who built the hacker recipes and Hexagon. So an alternative for Kali Linux. And he is really super nice. He's super younger than me. Like he might have 10 years less than me, but it's inspiring to see like the young generation becoming so good, so fast, and being so nice and willing to share with people. And I also have like references like I don't know if you're into malware a lot or not, but at some point there was an infamous malware called Dark Comet. It's been used like for bad things in some countries, but the idea behind that was just like a guy willing to develop something and want to learn stuff. And I have the luck to know the guy, so Jean-Pierre, is really super nice. And whenever I have any questions regarding malware, or whether it's like I fell on this specific thing and I don't know what the guy is trying to do, and he's like, oh, this reminds me of this specific thing, maybe you want to take a look at that. And it's always nice to have so knowledgeable people that you can like ask into that. And yeah, I could
You could
maybe
go
quote
on
a lot of
forever. I know,
people.
right? It feels like getting the Oscar and you're on the stage and you're like, I know I'm going to forget so many names. Um,
Yeah.
One of the things you just said that I love about the community at large is how helpful everyone is. There's no such thing as too many dumb, stupid questions because so many people are so helpful of offering guidance, sharing links, sharing just the collaboration in the CTF and the broader, pen testing, the hacker community, if you will. And let me just say something for someone watching right now. When you hear the term hacker, hacker is not a bad term at all. You got to get that out your head. A hacker is simply someone that wants to know how something works, that wants to see how they can get inside of it and reverse engineer it. Just, it's like the kid that took apart the toaster. I was that kid. I would take apart toasters and microwaves and radios because I wanted to see what was inside and see how it goes. And maybe I could take this thing and make it do another thing. That's what hacking's about. Modulating parts, putting stuff together, building stuff. That's what a hacker is. Think of it as another word is tinkerer, someone that tinkers with things, right? A mechanic, a reverse engineer. These are all hackers. So you got to get that hacker term out of just being bad. Now, are they bad hackers? Yes, we have people that do very bad things with their knowledge. But like I said, there's always the general term is a good thing. And so the larger hacker community, and folks, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile already, build a LinkedIn profile. Because how did I get in touch with Matthieu? I just reached out and said, hey, would you like to have a discussion on my podcast? And he said yes. And I always live by the phrase, the answer is always no unless you ask. So you ask, the answer is always going to be no if you never ask. But I asked, he said yes, and now we're having a wonderful discussion about not only his career, but these parts of industry that you can get involved with and start learning and growing. And as he mentioned, there's people that have only got a few years of experience. But Isaac Newton famously said, if I've seen further, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants. And this community has so many giants that if you come in today, start learning the tools and learning, like you'll hear the common one, like Kali Linux is real big, but there's a new one that I recently found out about that's also interesting for folks to look up. It's called CSI Linux. It's the digital forensics toolkit. So you have a lot of these great tools. There's Burp Suite. Oh my goodness, we could probably name several other suites, but once you start learning these tools, you'll find out it gets super easy. And these tools are simplifying. And now that we have AI, even developing custom code is becoming faster and faster and easier. And ransomware as a service and all these other malicious things that are out there are just showing you how easy it is for people to get involved. Whether you choose to do good things or bad things is up to you, your ethics and morals. But hopefully you choose to fight the good fight, help folks like Matthieu and many others that are out there trying to help businesses be more safe and more secure. Um, I know we could talk forever, and I want to respect your time, Matthieu, and I just have a few more questions. So one of those questions is that a lot of us are super busy with our day job, and we have maybe other projects and websites and podcasts and speaking events and everything that you do in your career. But I know a lot of us professionals, we do try to make some time for things like charity work, volunteer work, nonprofit. And it could be whether you're donating your time, your energy, your money, or if it's just something that's near and dear to your heart. Is there any of these that you want to shine a light on at this moment of the podcast that's doing some great work in the world?
So what I do outside of my job, as you said, as a Hack the Box ambassador and as a meetup group holder, I give some of my time to help people meet together. So it started from the concept that in France, we had a lot of people involved in cybersecurity, but we had no group to muster all of them. Like they were all in their own environment and no one was talking to each other if they didn't know. So we started running a group locally in the town where I live. Like it's not that big and we were like 30. And after that, we had people coming from all over France, over Discord, but also in other countries where they are French speaking. And in fact, at some point, I've been like a cybersecurity trainer for big companies, like really big companies. So if you get to the LinkedIn, you would see like maybe Deloitte or a huge cyber engineering school in France, or even I worked for Sense Institute as a VTA. And I was like, okay, I feel like it's bad for people not to be able to get access to the knowledge they should be getting access to. And at some point in my career, I had done big things. I had a lot of certs and people were starting to reach out and saying, hey, how did you get there? And I was like, I tried and I learned things and I read books and I did this and this and this and this. And the questions came quite often and the questions were quite often the same and the answers were always the same because basically it was not changing. And I was like, maybe it would be great if someone with experience was like sharing his experience for free during these meetups. So basically, this is what we do with other security professional. Like every 2 weeks, we are starting a meeting for about 3 hours. So that would be 6 hours a month, plus the preparing time and things like that. So maybe that would be like 1 week of preparation split across multiple weeks. And we are just like planning everything for cyber newbies to join and be able to get knowledge without having to pay huge amount of money, like 3K or things like that, and just help people like they're changing job. I mean, we had a doctor of medicine, like he was saying, hey, I no longer want to do this. I want to be a penetration tester. And he's been coming to our meetups meetup after meetups. He had a lot of questions. He did a lot of research on his own, but he had questions and he always found people to answer. And in the end, he became a penetration tester. And he was like, yeah, I've been doing this because of you. And we were like, no, we just helped you, but you were surrounded by a lot of helpful people. That was the most important. You did the heavy lifting. We just told you how to lift, but you did the lifting in the end. So
Yes.
yeah, this is what I like to do outside of cyber, like helping other people getting into cyber. And
I love it. And I
because
love it that again, this is a welcoming community, folks. And you just got to just reach out and ask the questions, connect with folks. It's a very welcoming community. Um, since you're from France, if you had to say, if there was a global CTF and every country had a team, how would you and your team rank amongst the rest of the countries in the world?
well, depends upon what kind of CTF we have
Let's
and
say
who
it's
is
your
the
team's
team.
specialty.
But in France, we have quite a lot of good security researcher when it comes to Microsoft environments, especially on the AD. We have I talked about shutdown, but we also have like Topotam, who released the Petit Potam attack, ESC8 for the ADCS. So we have quite good people. We have Podalirius. So we have good security researcher when it comes to pawning Microsoft environments.
Mhm.
And we have quite talented bug bounty hunters. So if the CTF is about cloud, AI, or
Mhm.
web apps, we would be pretty good, I guess, because I know a lot of folks into bug bounty. And I think last year, the France won the HackerOne World Cup last year,
Okay.
but this year we were like fourth or something like that. But yeah,
Hey, top five is amazing. So.
So yeah, maybe we will not be the first, but we would be, I guess, in the top 10 team. I hope so.
Yeah. And then, another little insight, folks, is when you think of the different countries for hackers, because of the 80s and all the movies, a lot of people think Russia is in the top. Russia's maybe depending on the list, maybe number 8 or 9 on a list. But there are so many countries, like I'll throw out Estonia, Georgia. I mean, shoot, you could say the Syrian Electric Army. You could talk about a couple APTs would rank higher on that just because their sophisticated level of sophistication that you would throw them in the mix. But yeah, Russia is not in the top five, folks. So you can look up a couple lists. You might see one list pay Russia some respect on there, but there's so many other countries, and of course, about half of the top 10 is going to be former Soviet bloc type nations, of course, like Georgia being one of them. But and then Latvia, I could throw Latvia in there. But a lot of these countries, phenomenal hackers and pen testers. Europe in general, just to put the statement out there, Europe is a very formidable force when it comes to, you already mentioned, security research, and it comes to just really tackling issues from both the human nature side, the legal side of it. They try to tackle it all at once, and they do a pretty good job of it. Whereas in the States, we usually try to put out the technology first, and we worry about the effects on people, and we do the laws later. So we kind of jump the gun. But whereas in Europe, I do appreciate that they try to approach all the facets as best as they can, all at the same time, to protect people, infrastructures, and everything. So that my hats off to the EU and Europe for that. We're winding up to the end of the podcast, and again, I appreciate your time. I give all of my guests now in this season the final word. So whatever you like to say, the floor is yours.
So I would say if you want to get into cyber, don't fear to do the leap of faith. Like find helpful people. I'm sure you have plenty of things around you, whether it's a Hack the Box meetup group, a DEF CON group, or even a local meetup group. I don't know. But just if you want to do that, don't let anyone tell you that you won't be able to do cyber. I mean, if I had listened to people saying me, you won't be doing that, I would not be here tonight. I would not be in the field because I had been promised by a former boss that I would never get into cyber and that I would finish homeless. And it didn't happen, obviously, and hopefully. So yeah, if you want to get into cyber, you can definitely get into cyber. Just make sure to meet the right people and you will
I
be
love
on
that
track.
advice. Thank you so much for your time, Matthieu. And again, folks, this is one of the people working on the forefronts of the cyber landscape, protecting networks and helping customers defend their data. And again, the industry is better for having someone like Matthieu in it. So thank you so much for your time today, Matthieu.
Thank you for having me, Jim.